Good evening. Welcome to the evening news. I'm your host for tonight, Catboy Kunhua. In the news, Fort McMurray, Alberta, a freight train carrying over 50,000 liters of fresh water has derailed, devastating several open pit mines and tailing ponds in the Fort McMurray area, ruining all the oil. No injuries were reported when 12 cars of pristine river water from British Columbia jumped the tracks and plunged into an open pit being mined for heavy crude and bitumen. However, the last of the 3 double-hulled containers ruptured on impact, covering the mine in a chemical known as dihydrogen monoxide, otherwise known as H2O. Helpless oil workers looked on in disbelief as a small pond of pristine water began to form over their worksite. The accident is yet another illustration of the dangers of transporting water. Some activists believe that water should be left in the ground and not risk further catastrophes like this one. They say Canada needs to transition itself off of a water-based economy, so we owe it to our children to finally end our dependence on water and move to a more sustainable cola-based economy. Right. In entertainment news, the Russo brothers, who directed Avengers Infinity War, announced that the sequel, Avengers Endgame, will be released on April 26th of this year, almost a year to the day when Avengers 3 came out. The superhero ensemble film promises to have a huge all-star cast to resolve the staggering ending of the last film. In Avengers 3, the film shocked audiences as Thanos' snap wiped out half of all life in the universe. The Russo brothers said they wanted to end the last film. They want the ending of the last film to have a lasting emotional effect on the audience. And they said if they could, just to emphasize how significant Thanos' snap was, they would have made half the audience disappear as well. But so far, only DC films have figured out how to do that.
Oh, poor DC.
Oh, Marvel rules.
Now, in a recent poll, a group of people who were looking for employment said the question they hated the most while being interviewed was being asked where they saw themselves a year from now because they don't have 2020 vision. Year from now, 2020. All right. Now, last weekend on 60 Minutes, ex-CEO of Starbucks, Howard Schultz, announced his intention to run for president in 2020, or as Starbucks calls it, venti venti. Schultz already has a designed campaign logo, and here it is. In the interest of recycling, if his presidential bid does not work out, Howard could use this logo for launching a new daytime talk show. With Howard Schultz. Anyway, I think it's pretty obvious that Schultz has not been to a Starbucks lately, or else the handwriting part of the sign would have read, horse-fed Schutz.
That's what happened, baby.
Yeah. Anyway, while on 60 Minutes, Howard claims that he's concerned about one thing: doing everything I can to help families who have been left behind and restoring dignity back to the Oval Office. I'm concerned about one thing. Howard doesn't seem to know that that's actually two things. Democrats are worried that Schultz running for president will only cause a split in the Democratic vote and guarantee Trump a second term in office. This was evident in New York yesterday when Howard was heckled by an audience member who called out on live TV on NBC News, "Don't help elect Trump, you egotistical billionaire asshole." By the way, the person who said this sounded exactly like Thanos so much, I actually IM'd him and asked him, "Were you in New York yesterday?" Like, nope, it wasn't him. Oh, well. Speaking of billionaire assholes, well, actually, maybe that's a little bit unfair. How about speaking of unqualified billionaires with no political experience who think they could run a country, Donald Trump had something to say about Howard Schultz, as he obviously knows Schultz is a threat to the Democrats. And he tweeted this. He said, "Howard Schultz doesn't have the guts to run for president. I watched him on 60 Minutes last night, and I agree with him that he's not the smartest person. Besides, America already has that." I only hope that Starbucks is still paying me their rent in Trump Tower. Okay. This tweet has been rated as the most obvious act of, the most obvious act of goading since you were in grade school, and little troublemaker Susie Higgins approached you during recess and claimed that those fourth graders were talking shit about you on the monkey bars. By the way, for the record, all right, back up here. Sorry, I lost my camera position. There we go. For the record, at the very end when he said, I only hope that they're paying their, I hope they're still paying their rent in Trump Tower. For the record, if Donald Trump decides to oust Starbucks from his tower, he may have to answer the NAACP because Starbucks coffee is the only black tenant he has.
Oh, my God.